Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Find Your Way to Vibe. After taking a short break between seasons, I'm excited to be back and ready to begin the summer journey together. These pauses always remind me how important it is to take this pause, to step back and reset and create space for new reflections and experiences and new conversations as well. And as we kick off the summer season, today's episode felt like the perfect place to start. Since this episode is airing on Father's Day and also during Men's Mental Health Month, we're going to spend some time honoring the fathers and men who have shaped our lives while also exploring the importance of men's mental health and the conversations that many of us are learning how to have more openly. So wherever you're joining me from today, whether you're celebrating, remembering, grieving, reflecting, or simply listening, thank you for being here. Before we move any further into today's reflection, let's take a moment to slow things down. Get comfortable wherever you are. Soften your shoulders and take a breath with me. Take a slow breath in. And gently let it out. Wherever you are, allow yourself to arrive and walk gently into this space with me. Welcome to Find Your Way to Vibe. Welcome back, everyone. If you are new here, my name is Amber and I am your guide. And this is a space where we slow down, reflect, reconnect with ourselves, and remember what it means to truly value our being. As we move into the summer portion of this season, I wanted to begin with a conversation that feels meaningful in the moment. Not because I have all the answers, but because the older I get, the more I realize that every person is carrying a story that we may never fully see. We're carrying responsibilities, expectations, sacrifices, and struggles that often remain hidden beneath the surface. Moments of uncertainty, moments where we aren't sure what comes next, yet we keep moving forward anyway. And when I think about the men who have been a part of my life, I realize they've been carrying many of those same things all along. The fathers, the sons, the partners, the friends, the mentors, the coworkers, and men who have shown up for the people they love while navigating challenges, responsibilities, and uncertainties of their own. And while men and women may experience life differently, one thing remains true for all of us, I feel. That we all want to feel valued, we all want to feel understood, and none of us were meant to carry life's heavier moments completely alone. But before we get into today's reflection, let's take a moment for a little way to vibe. Okay, so while I've had the past few weeks off from doing the podcast, I've had some time to find my way to vibe often. And it felt like coming home to myself. I spent a lot of time resetting and getting outside, walking, hiking, just being with myself and making time to listen and allowing myself to slow down enough to actually hear what life has been trying to tell me. So I'm really grateful for this time that I took. I'm glad that from the start I set the intention to take time off in between and do more mini season within the large season, because it's proved to be very worth it for me and very powerful, because it makes me sit back and remember what's worked. And it invites me to reconnect with some of the tools that have helped me through things in my life. And some of those things lately have included getting back to some meetings and reconnecting with the reminders that healing isn't something we accomplish once and then never think about again. It's something that we practice daily, and something that we return to more deeply when we are in more difficult parts of our lives. And sometimes life does pull us away from the things that ground us. And part of finding our way back is simply remembering that what has helped us find our footing in the first place. And one of the highlights of this time apart, aside from me kind of reorganizing my space, clearing my space, was getting out of the house and going to the New Heights podcast live show in LA. That was something that I looked forward to for a while and was really excited for the opportunity to go. For anyone that is unfamiliar, New Heights is a podcast hosted by brothers Jason and Travis Kelsey. And what started as a conversation around football has grown into something so much bigger. It's sports woven together with storytelling, humor, family, friendship, and authentic conversation, just kind of all wrapped together. And it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy listening to it because of the laughter. A lot of laughter, and for me, that just lifts my mood instantly. But what I think resonates with so many people isn't just the football, even though that's why a lot of people are there. And I found the New Heights podcast because I'm an Eagles fan and Jason was an Eagle, so that's how I was introduced to it. But what I feel resonates beyond that is the relationship that they have, the brotherhood and the support that they have for each other, the way they can laugh at each other and challenge each other and also celebrate each other and still create space for real conversations. In a world where genuine connection sometimes feels hard to find, I think people are hungry for that. And that's why they gravitate to this podcast so much, is because people are hungry for community and belonging and relationships where they can simply be themselves. And I was incredibly grateful to have the opportunity to attend the live show because I got to see it up close and personal. And I got to experience it with my daughter and also her boyfriend. I had a little, I'm going to call it magic happen, because I could have been upset. I could have given up, but I didn't. So as I was buying the tickets, I got in there when they went on sale, and I went to go buy 2 tickets. And when I did, I got my 2 tickets and I was really excited about that. I was ready to check out, and as I was checking out, the system errored out and I wasn't able to get the tickets. So I was really bummed about that. So I went back in, tried to find new tickets, and when I got a new ticket, all I could see was single seats. And I was like, what is going on? So I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm going by myself then. So I just bought the single ticket anyway. Once I bought the ticket, I went back in just to make sure that the ticket ended up in my account. And when I did that, I had clicked back into the thing again, and all of a sudden two tickets popped up, and it was for row A in the orchestra section, seats 2 and 4. I looked it up, front and center, snatched up the two tickets, and made my day. I don't know how that happened, but somehow the universe had other plans for me, and those front row tickets found their way onto my path. So I just grabbed them with gratitude and excitement. And I was originally thinking that my son would go, but he decided not to, and I took my daughter instead. And then luckily, her boyfriend was able to use the other ticket. So it all worked out anyways. Money well spent. We had a great time. And it was a wonderful experience that I got to share with my daughter. She never really has listened to the podcast, but she's listened to me talk about them plenty of times. And so she was excited to experience it herself, and she really enjoyed it. The energy in the room was incredible. There was a lot of laughter, a lot of excitement, storytelling, and just a crowd of people who were there gathered for the same reason: connection and a shared experience. But what stood out to me the most was how genuine they really are. Jason and Travis have built something really special, because underneath the success, the football, and the entertainment, they just show up as themselves. And at the end of the show, I was fortunate enough to meet both Jason and Travis and thank them for the laughter they brought into my life and other people's lives, and for the constant positive example they continue to set for the young men out there. I think it's really important that young men witness this kind of connection, because it's a genuine connection with real love for each other, respect for each other, and just that support that I feel like a lot of men are in need of. So it's really neat to have gotten to meet them and really just thank them for what they put out into the world. And on top of that, I also got to meet Jets Jake and intern Brandon, who are the ones that make everything happen behind the scenes. And having my podcast, I can relate to them on a smaller scale. I'm obviously not as large as New Heights, but I can appreciate the effort that they put in. And I know how much effort often goes unseen. And I just have a tremendous amount of respect for the work they do. So by the end of the evening, I found myself just feeling extremely grateful for that opportunity and the experience and the memories that were made. It just, a lot of joy and laughter and connection was set in motion that night. And I am really just glad I decided to go. I think one of the greatest gifts we can offer each other is connection. It's letting people know they matter, and it's creating space where people can show up as themselves. And sometimes it's simply reminding someone that they are not alone. When I started reflecting on Father's Day and men's mental health, I kept coming back to the men in my own life. My dad, my bonus dad, my son, my partner, friends, coworkers, mentors, men whose lives have intersected with mine in meaningful ways. And through those relationships, I've learned a few things about what many men carry quietly. And not because every man is the same, but because there are certain themes that seem to surface again and again. Themes of responsibility, pressure, strength, connection, and sometimes loneliness. And the more I've listened to the men in my life and observed the journeys they've walked, the more I've realized that many of them are carrying far more than most people ever see. And that's what I want to spend some time reflecting on today. One of the things I've observed throughout my life is how often men are expected to be the steady one, the provider, the protector, the problem solver, the person everyone turns to when something needs to be fixed, the person who keeps moving forward regardless of what they're feeling inside or how tired they are. I've seen it in my father's, my partners, friends, coworkers, mentors, and even my own son. And it wasn't until much later in my life that I began to appreciate the weight that often comes with being the person others depend on. The responsibility, the expectations, and the quiet pressure of feeling like you always have to just keep going. As life went on, I started noticing those same patterns in other men around me. Through relationships, I've learned that many men carry stress differently than I do. There were times I could tell something was weighing heavily on my partner, but instead of talking about it, he would retreat and try to solve it on his own first. And not because he wanted to push people away, but because he felt responsible for fixing the problem before bringing anyone else into it. A lesson I think some of us can learn, myself maybe a little bit. Just kind of work through it first before dumping it on other people, I guess, is a good process. But the more that I reflected on that, the more I realized how common that mindset can actually be. And many boys grow up hearing messages about toughness. They highlight it, and they learn about that long before they're taught how to process emotions. I remember hearing a lot of boys be told, be strong, don't cry, get up, handle it, push through it, etc. And while resilience is important, I've learned that strength isn't the absence of emotion. The way that I see it, real strength often looks like honesty. Sometimes it looks like vulnerability. And sometimes it sounds like the simple words, I'm struggling. Because carrying everything alone isn't strength, it's a burden. And sometimes the strongest thing we can do is allow someone to walk beside us while we carry it. And when people feel like they always have to be strong, something else usually follows. Things begin to stay unsaid. One important lesson that I've learned came through my relationship with my partner. I'm naturally someone who wants to understand things. I want to know the why behind what happened. I want to talk through it, explore it, make sense of it, fix it, the whole shebang. I want to do it all. So when I could tell something was bothering him and he didn't immediately want to talk about it, I sometimes interpreted that as distance. But over time, I realized that wasn't what was happening at all. He wasn't avoiding the conversation. He wasn't shutting me out. He was processing. And what he taught me was that not everyone processes their emotions out loud. I was used to people around me expressing their emotions out loud, so this was new territory for me. And he taught me that sometimes people need time and space just to figure out what they're feeling. Sometimes they need to sit with something before they can even find the words for it. And one of the greatest lessons I took from that experience was learning that there doesn't always have to be an answer right away. Sometimes the most supportive thing we can do isn't to ask more questions. It's simply creating a space where someone feels safe enough to come to us when they're ready. A space where listening is on and fixing is off. Where they don't feel judged or rushed. Where they know they'll be heard. Because at the end of the day, men want to feel heard and valued just as much as women do. And sometimes what looks like silence isn't distance at all. Sometimes it's someone trying to make sense of what's happening inside before they share it with someone else. I think one of the biggest conversations happening around mental health right now is loneliness. And the older I get, the more I understand why. Life gets busy. Responsibilities grow. Work demands increase. Families need attention. Schedules fill up. And friendships sometimes become less frequent. And before we know it, meaningful connection can slowly drift into a background. What I've also learned is that loneliness doesn't only happen when we're physically alone. Sometimes people can feel lonely inside relationships too. Lonely surrounded by people who care about them. Because loneliness isn't always about who is around us. Sometimes it's about whether we feel seen, whether we feel understood, whether we feel safe enough to share what we're carrying. And one of the things that struck me while attending the New Heights show was realizing that all these thousands of people had gathered around something much bigger than just football. Yes, people came to see Jason and Travis, but I think they also came because they felt connected to something bigger than themselves, to a community, to shared experiences, to the simple reminder that we all need places where we belong. Looking around that theater, I found myself thinking how much people really need that. How much we all need places where we can feel like we belong. Places where we can show up as ourselves and know we're not alone. And I think that's one of the reasons communities matter so much. Whether it's friendships, family, support groups, churches, podcasts, sports, communities, or simply having one person you can talk to honestly. Connection matters. We need each other more than we sometimes realize, and now more than ever. And often tied closely to that loneliness is another challenge I've seen many men wrestle with: purpose, responsibility, and self-worth. Many of the men I've known have carried a deep sense of responsibility. Responsibility for their families, for their careers, their relationships, their finances and futures, their children, providing for the people they love, protecting the people they love, supporting them. And those are all beautiful qualities, but they can also become incredibly heavy burdens when someone begins to believe their worth is tied only to what they provide. I've watched men put enormous pressure on themselves because they wanted to be dependable, because they wanted to make sure everyone else was okay, because they wanted to do the right thing. But life changes, careers change, relationships change, and children grow up. Plans shift. And when those roles begin to change, many people find themselves asking deeper questions. Who am I now? What gives my life meaning? Or what comes next? One experience that gave me a deeper appreciation for this happened when my son left for college in Alaska. Like most parents, so much of my life had revolved around raising my children, making sure they were okay, helping them navigate challenges, being there when they needed me. And then one day, they're grown and stepping into lives of their own. And I remember feeling incredibly proud, but I also remember realizing that a role that had been such a huge part of my identity was beginning to change. For years, so much of my time, energy, and focus had been centered around being a mom. And while that role never truly goes away, it does evolve. And it made me think about how many people experience that throughout their lives. And it's not just parents, but anyone who has tied part of their identity to any role, a career, a relationship, being a provider, being needed in general, being the person others depend on. When those roles shift, it can leave us asking questions we never expected to ask. Where do I find purpose in this new season of life? And while I experienced that as a mother, I've often wondered how many fathers wrestle with those same questions when the children they've spent years protecting, supporting, and guiding begin building lives of their own. Maybe that's part of being human, learning that our worth was never meant to come solely from what we do for others. Our worth isn't limited to a job title, a role, a paycheck, or how many people depend on us. Because while purpose can evolve throughout our lives, our value remains. And all of these reflections lead me to perhaps the most important lesson I've learned through the men in my life. That nobody is meant to carry life alone. As I reflect on the men who have shaped my life, my dad, my bonus dad, friends, mentors, partners, coworkers, and my own son, I keep coming back to one simple truth. Nobody is meant to carry life alone. Not men, not women, not any of us. And when I think about everything we've talked about today, the pressure to be strong, the things that go unsaid, the loneliness that can quietly creep in, and the responsibilities we carry for the people we love, it all points back to that truth. One valuable lesson I've learned through relationships is that supporting someone doesn't always mean solving their problems. Sometimes it simply means listening and sitting quietly beside them. Sometimes it means asking how they're doing and genuinely staying present for the answer. Sometimes it means respecting their process while still reminding them they're not alone. Sometimes it means creating a space where listening is on and fixing is off. A space where people feel valued and where they can simply be human. And perhaps That's the reminder I want to leave with today. To the men listening and the people who love them, you don't have to carry everything by yourself, and neither do they. Sometimes the strongest thing we can do isn't carry more. Sometimes it's allowing someone to walk beside us while we carry it. This week, Brooklyn Lights the Way is dedicated to the men who have shaped our lives in ways both big and small. The ones who taught us through their actions. The ones who showed up when it mattered. The ones who carried responsibilities, faced challenges, and kept moving forward, even when life felt heavy. As I reflect on today's conversation, I find myself feeling grateful, very, very grateful for the many men who have crossed my path and left something meaningful behind. A lesson, a memory, an example, a reminder of what it means to care for the people around us. And to the men listening today, especially those carrying more than anyone realizes, I hope you remember that your struggles matter. You matter. Your feelings matter. Your well-being matters. And you don't have to have all the answers today. You don't have to carry every burden by yourself. And you don't have to earn your worth through how much you sacrifice for others. You are already enough. May you find moments of connection when you need them, moments of laughter when life feels too serious, moments of peace when everything feels loud, and people who remind you that you're not walking this path alone. And may Brooklyn's light remind all of us that strength isn't found in carrying everything by ourselves. Sometimes strength is found in connection, in community, in allowing others to walk beside us along the way. As we close today's episode, I hope you'll take a moment to think about the men who have shaped your life. The fathers, the sons, the partners, the friends, mentors, coworkers, the men who help teach you something about strength, resilience, responsibility, or simply what it means to keep showing up. What have they taught you? And what might they be carrying that you cannot see? Because sometimes the people who appear the strongest are carrying the heaviest burden. And if today's conversation resonated with you, maybe the invitation is simple. Check in on someone. Share your gratitude for someone. Make space for a conversation. Not because you have the perfect words or the perfect advice, but because your presence matters. Sometimes the most meaningful thing we can offer another person isn't a solution. It's our willingness to listen. It's reminding them that they don't have to navigate life alone. And as we move into this summer season together, I hope we all find a little more courage to have the conversations that matter, to ask for help when we need it, and to remember that strength and vulnerability can exist side by side. As always, thank you for walking alongside me on this path today. And I'm really excited to be back at it, and I look forward to what's to come. But before I go, I want to wish a very happy Father's Day to all the fathers, grandfathers, stepfathers, father figures, and the men who continue showing up for the people they love. Your presence matters more than you may ever know. And a special happy Father's Day to my dad and stepdad and all the father figures in my life. I am so grateful that I have such wonderful men in my life that have really helped me become a better version of myself with the lessons and guidance that you have all given me. So thank you. I love you. Happy Father's Day. I hope you have a wonderful day. In addition, I would also like to give a quick shout out to Jason and Travis Kelsey, along with the entire New Heights crew, Jets Jake, intern Brandon, all of the others, simply for creating a space that brings people together through laughter, joy, and connection. It was truly an incredible experience and one that my daughter and I will never forget. So thank you for that. And if this space is something you keep finding your way back to, please take a moment to share a little support by either liking, following, sharing, or leaving a comment behind. It truly helps these conversations continue reaching the people they're meant to find. And if you'd like to stay connected, you can head on over to findyourway2vyb.com, where you can submit nominations for Brooklyn Lights the Way, Trail of Gratitude, or even share ways that you find your way to value yourself. So that's over on findyourway2vyb.com on the contact page, or you can even reach out to me on Instagram at findyourway2vyb. All of the links are available in the description. And with that, until next time, walk slowly, breathe deeply, and remember, you can always find your way to vibe.